There's a lot of laughs making it. It might not appear to be that on screen, but you know, the physical side of what I do is something that I've always enjoyed. I've enjoyed the training, the preparation, the designing of the fights.
Jason Statham became famous for playing tough guys, but his real story is far harder to believe. For decades, pieces of his past have remained largely overlooked, creating a picture of a life that looks nothing like the one fans think they know. So what was Jason Statham hiding before Hollywood came calling? And how did that hidden past help shape one of the most unlikely careers in movie history? Join us as we uncover the double life Jason Statham has been living for the past 30 years.
I mean, do you cry during films?
Do I cry? Do I cry during films? Not this one, no.
Have you ever cried during a film?
Yes, of course I have, yeah. It's a very sensitive side that you're bringing out.
Born into the wrong life. Most people assume Jason Statham was always heading toward Hollywood, that someone spotted raw talent, pointed a camera at him, and the rest wrote itself. That is not what happened, not even remotely. Jason was born in Shirebrook, a small working-class town in Derbyshire, England. His father, Barry, was a street vendor who sold cheap jewelry, and his mother, Eileen, was a dancer. Money was tight, and the world Jason grew up in had no connection to entertainment, no runway into show business, and no blueprint for what he would eventually become. As a boy, Jason could not stay still. He was drawn to trampolining, high jump, gymnastics, football, tennis, and squash, the kind of kid who needed something to master, not just something to do. But everything shifted during a family holiday, when, at around 12 years old, he watched a man step off a high diving board and enter the water without a sound. Something clicked. From that afternoon on, diving was the only thing that mattered. He began training at Crystal Palace National Sports Centre under coach Kim White, who would later become the British diving program manager. By 1985, Jason had been accepted into the British National Diving School, a program that normally recruited athletes who had been training since early childhood. Most elite divers begin at 4 or 5 years old. Jason had only a handful of years behind him. He trained anyway, every day, without the foundation his competitors had spent years building. He represented Britain's national diving squad for 12 years, competing at world and European championships. He later spoke about it bluntly, saying that he wasn't making money at the time, since diving was not a well-paid sport. But it gave him something money couldn't buy: discipline and an understanding of what his body could do under pressure. He is reported to have competed at the 1990 Commonwealth Games in Auckland, representing England. 2 years later, at the 1992 World Championships, he is credited with finishing 12th on the 10-meter platform. 12th in the entire world, in a sport he had started fewer than 10 years earlier. He never made it to the Olympics. What he built instead turned out to matter more. But diving doesn't pay rent, and when the money ran out, Jason did what he had grown up watching his father do. He went to the markets. The stalls were where his father Barry had spent his working life, selling cheap jewelry to passers-by in Great Yarmouth, Norfolk. Jason picked up the same work, except his goods were counterfeit, fake jewelry, imitation perfumes, things that looked real enough to sell. He called it street theater. Every day was a live performance. Read the person in front of you in the first 3 seconds, find the opening, and close the sale before their better judgment caught up. The goods were fake. The skill was completely real. He admitted he struggled with the ethics of it, but he was too good at it to stop. Then came the third life. A modeling scout noticed Jason, drawn to the physical looks, the frame, the kind of presence that cameras pick up, whether the person intends it or not. The scout introduced him to modeling, and Jason began working for brands including French Connection and Tommy Hilfiger, his face and his build doing the work that his diving and market stalls had spent years preparing. He was not a conventional model. He wasn't built for the runway. After 12 years of athletic training, his body had the density and structure of a working athlete, not a fashion model. But that was exactly what the camera wanted. He moved differently and carried himself differently, and on a modeling set in the mid-90s, that difference is what put him in the same room as the person who would change everything. 3 lives, none of them acting. So how does a man like that end up in front of a camera, doing something no acting class could have taught him to do? The audition he didn't know he was taking. By the mid-90s, Jason was modeling regularly, earning a living through his face and his frame, with no particular artistic ambition and no plan beyond the next campaign. Then one day on set, he crossed paths with a young British director named Guy Ritchie. Guy was casting his debut feature, a fast-talking British crime film called Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He wasn't looking for trained actors. He wanted people who had actually lived inside the world the film was about, people who wouldn't need to be taught how to behave in it. Guy told Jason directly what he was looking for: street credibility, non-professionals, people whose real lives had already put them in rooms like the ones in the script. According to the story Jason has told in multiple interviews, Guy challenged him on the spot to impersonate an illegal street vendor and sell him fake jewelry. And Jason did what he had always done. He got the part, earned £5,000, and walked into a film that became a phenomenon. At 31, with no acting training and no industry connections, Jason Statham walked into a film that grossed over $28 million on a £1 million budget, was championed by critics across the UK and US, and introduced Guy Ritchie to the world. It was not a small debut, and Jason was in it. 2 years later, Guy brought him back for Snatch, this time as Turkish, a bare-knuckle boxing promoter whose dry, unflappable delivery in the middle of total chaos became one of the most quoted character voices of that era of British cinema. The film grossed over $80 million and pushed Jason firmly into Hollywood's line of sight. The doors were open, and Jason walked through them, carrying the one thing no acting school teaches: the ability to make a stranger believe you completely, in real time, under pressure, with nothing prepared. Decades later, Jason was open about what that relationship meant. He said the man who helped launch his career nearly 30 years ago, saying he owes him a great deal. He describes him as a mentor and a very special figure in his life, someone he still holds deep respect and affection for. That is something earned, not professional courtesy. But here is the question nobody stopped to ask. Why did every single character Hollywood handed Jason share the same blueprint? The quiet man, the hidden past, the life lived underneath. Was that a coincidence? Or was someone casting him as himself? Critics were wrong. $8 billion proved it. After Snatch, the offers came fast, and they all looked the same: action roles, every one of them, built around a template so consistent that critics would spend the next 20 years calling it a limitation. The template was always the same. A man with a very specific set of skills chooses a quiet life. Someone makes the mistake of disrupting it. He responds with surgical, terrible precision. The threat disappears, and the credits roll. From The Transporter, where Frank Martin is a professional driver who transports packages with no questions asked, to Wrath of Man, where he plays a mysterious security guard whose true identity slowly unfolds through a story driven entirely by revenge, Jason built an entire genre around a single, irresistible premise. This man has lived 10 lives before the story begins. What those critics missed was that Jason wasn't recycling a formula. He was perfecting a feeling. The feeling that underneath any ordinary person, something extraordinary might be coiled and waiting. He delivered it with such physical conviction that audiences trusted it every single time. Homefront makes the case. Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay himself, adapting Chuck Logan's novel, and cast James Franco, Winona Ryder, and Frank Grillo alongside Jason. When it was released in 2013, most critics dismissed it as flat. The audience completely disagreed. The film was made for $22 million and earned $51.6 million. And audiences, unlike critics, kept coming back to it. It is now streaming for free on Plex. Then came The Beekeeper in 2024, made on a $40 million budget, grossed $153 million worldwide, with no superhero suit and no cinematic universe to lean on. Just Jason, one very specific premise, and an audience that showed up anyway. By 2025, A Working Man, produced by Jason himself, alongside Sylvester Stallone, and distributed by Amazon MGM Studios, brought in $98 million. The man the critics called a one-trick pony had, at this point, become one of the most consistently bankable solo action stars in the history of Hollywood cinema. By 2025, his combined global box office across all films was reported at over $8 billion, built film by film, without a franchise, without a cinematic universe, and without ever sharing top billing with a superhero. $8 billion, built by a man who never depended on a franchise to carry him. But here's what made all of it possible, and what almost nobody has talked about. The formula worked because it was never entirely fiction. And the life that fed it, the one nobody was watching, was stranger than any of the films. But the box office number tells only half the story. Because the man who spent 30 years playing ghosts and loners, men with buried pasts, and no one waiting at home, had been living a completely different life the entire time. And almost nobody noticed. Nobody was watching the real story. The world had a very specific image of Jason. It was the image 30 years of films had built. The man who needed no one, went home to nothing, and existed only for the next confrontation. People assumed that was accurate. Since 2010, Jason has been with Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, an English model, actress, and face that has been on billboards from London to Los Angeles. They met at a party, and they got engaged in 2016. Their son Jack arrived in 2017, and their daughter in February 2022. But Rosie was not the beginning of that chapter. Before her, Jason had spent 7 years with actress Kelly Brook, a long, serious relationship that ended in 2004. Brook later said it simply ran its course because Jason was not yet ready to settle down. It took him another 6 years, another full reinvention, before he found the person he actually wanted to build something permanent with. They kept it private. They appeared on red carpets and at public events, but the relationship itself was protected. No coordinated press access, no managed narratives, no deliberate visibility. Just two people who decided that what mattered most to them was not available for public consumption. Jason has spoken about Rosie publicly as his anchor, and the consistency of that description across years of interviews is its own kind of evidence. He says the same thing every time. The man who plays loners on screen has, in reality, spent 15 years building something he has never once sold to a camera. And right now, That private life is taking its most concrete form yet. Jason and Rosie are currently building what they have called their forever home, a $33 million property on England's south coast, with a lap pool, a private beach, a boating lake, and, in the middle of all of it, a treehouse for their children. Rosie grew up in rural Devon in a working farm environment before moving into modeling at a young age, eventually building an international career in fashion and film. She has worked with major global brands and became known worldwide through her modeling and later her role in major film franchises. She has been direct about what this home represents to her, saying she has been dreaming of it since she left home. In that sense, the property connects 2 points in her life: the rural upbringing she came from in Devon and the highly public international life she built afterward. The man who has spent 30 years playing the world's most dangerous loner is building a tree house for his kids by the sea. That is the gap between the image and the man, and almost nobody has talked about it. His net worth in 2026 stands at over $100 million. No inheritance, no industry connections at the start, no lucky break that wasn't first set up by something he had already built. From a market stall in Derbyshire, selling fake jewelry, to a private beach on the south coast of England. From £5,000 for his first film role to producer credits on films that crossed $90 million at the box office. He is 58 years old, fully operational, and nowhere near finished. In fact, what is coming next, both professionally and creatively, is the most surprising chapter of his entire career. Because, for the first time in 30 years, Jason Statham is about to drop the disguise completely. So what exactly does dropping the disguise look like for a man who has spent 30 years perfecting it? And why is the answer the last thing anyone would have predicted? Playing himself for the first time. In 2026 alone, Jason has 3 major theatrical releases, and one of them breaks everything he has built. Shelter came first in January. Former Royal Marines commando, remote Scottish island, a girl arriving in a storm, and men from his past close behind. $50 million budget, $53 million back. Exactly on formula. Mutiny follows in August, Special Forces veteran, framed for murder, a conspiracy that reaches further than he can see. Same architecture, same result. And then there is the reunion that changes the conversation entirely. Viva la Madness, Guy Ritchie's 6th collaboration with Jason, is based on J.J. Connolly's novel and serves as a follow-up to Layer Cake. Jason steps into the lead role of an anonymous London drug dealer known only as X, alongside Vinnie Jones, Jason Isaacs, Ben Foster, Camila Mendes, Johnny Lee Miller, and Raul Alejandro. The film recently wrapped production. This is Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham in a room together for the 6th time in 30 years. That sentence is its own argument. The Beekeeper 2 follows in January 2027 through Amazon MGM Studios, with Indonesian director Timo Tjahjanto behind the camera, the man responsible for The Night Comes for Us, which is widely considered one of the most viscerally intense action films made in the last decade. He is taking Adam Clay somewhere the first film never went. But none of that is what people in the film industry are actually talking about. In April 2026, director David Leitch confirmed to Collider what his next film with Jason would actually be. Jason Statham playing Jason Statham. Not a character loosely based on him, Leitch was explicit. He said Jason was playing Jason Statham. He's playing himself, and that's what's really interesting about it to him. He said he thinks it's different from some of these other meta movies. He described it as a small movie with a sweet, funny tone, with plenty of action, and said it would show Jason being more fun. Jason was praised for his strong comedic instincts, with the view that audiences would enjoy seeing him in those kinds of roles. The project was described as a chance to deliver something fun, engaging, and escapist, while still carrying emotional depth and heart. The film is called Jason Statham Stole My Bike. It is set for theatrical release on August 6, 2027. It carries a PG-13 rating. The budget is $80 million. For 30 years, Jason Statham played the same man in different costumes, someone with a past they had buried, a life they had left behind, and a version of themselves the world was never allowed to see. Audiences never got tired of it because underneath every version of that character, something felt true. Now, for the first time, the character is himself. No alias, no cover story, no quiet life concealing something lethal underneath. Just the kid from Shirebrook, the one who started too late, sold things that weren't real, and walked into an audition he didn't know he was giving. That kid built an $8 billion career. Now, he's the last role left. 30 years ago, Jason Statham walked into a film director's office and did what he had been doing for years on a market stall. He read the room, found the pitch, and made someone believe him completely. They gave him a role. He turned the role into a career. And now, after all of that, the only character left to play is the one he has been all along. He was never just an action star. He was the diver who started too late and competed anyway. The market trader who could read a stranger in 3 seconds. The man who built a family by the sea while the world assumed it knew him. Jason Statham has spent 30 years playing men who hide who they really are. Now he's playing himself. And the question is, will the audience that fell in love with the mystery fall in love with the man? Or has the mystery always been the point? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.